Hi, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours. If you're watching on YouTube, at some point you can go down there and there's a direct link and you can come and join us in Zoom. If you like that sort of thing, you can actually ask questions, be part of the chat, be part of the questions. So we welcome you to come in if you like. If this is the first time you're here, let me show you around a little bit. You may be an attendee. That's usually how you enter this platform. So you're coming in as an attendee. You'll notice that there's a bunch of folks here in the panel. And you're probably wondering, how did they get in the panel? Well, they got here early. We open up at 6 and we talk about all kinds of things. Sometimes it's technical, sometimes it's not. So, but we have a good little conversation until about 6:30. 6:30, we have we distribute the Discord link sometime between 6:30 and 6:40. But I would be here by 6:30 if you want to join Discord. Discord is where about 500 of us are continuing this conversation between the shows. Then at 6:40 or somewhere between 6:40 and 6:45, we start mic checks. And if you're here before that and you raise your Zoom hand, then we can incorporate you into the panel. But once you see us doing mic checks, it's over. You'll have to come another day. So so that's that's kind of the requirement there. We want to make sure that you've got good audio, good video, good internet, and so those are the important things to be kind of ready for that. Now, if you're an attendee now and not in the panel, you have access to tools that we don't have. One of them is the Q&A. So the Q&A system lets you ask questions. We prioritize that. In fact, that's mostly what we're going to answer are the questions in the Q&A. And we have a couple of requirements for that. One is keep your questions short. 5 lines. We can't read it. Poor Chris is going to do the best he can to read through these things, and he gets feisty. Fenwick gets feisty if you start writing long questions. And so anyway, so keep them short. So that we can actually read them. Keep it to 1 question per post. People are voting on those, and it's hard for them to figure out what to vote on if you start putting multiple questions in. And don't put comments in there. Comments are for the chat. So you have chat there too. You can talk amongst yourselves, but don't put comments into the questions. We'll just dismiss them. So so that's kind of what you want to do. We do question and answer between 7 o'clock and 8. At 8 o'clock, we talk about one subject. So those subjects are, today we're going to talk about education. It's the first time we're talking about education. Not the first time, but the first time we're regularly doing it. So Mondays will be our education day. Tuesdays are going to be audio. Tomorrow we're going to talk about voiceovers. Wednesdays are cameras, and we're going to talk about lenses. We said safety, but I was reminded that we still have more lenses to talk about. So we're going to talk about spherical lenses. So, and then on Thursday, we're going to talk about hosting. Carl Guest is here. He's going to talk about hosting. And Friday, we're still working on, and Saturday then is the long day where we have a lot of technical talks. So those are some of the things that are coming up. And then, so that's what we have planned. That's what we're working on. And without further ado, we're going to go ahead and start with the questions. Fenwick, what do we got? Oh, one more thing before I get started. There's not that many votes yet, and there's a lot of people here. So vote on the questions. There's a lot of questions in there. Look at questions that you like. Don't ask questions about education until the second hour. We're not going to answer them right now because we're going to talk about that in the second hour. But otherwise, vote on the questions that you think are the most interesting, so that we know what to prioritize. Anyway, okay, go ahead.
So our own Cyprian has his first question is he needs to order 10 home kits for his teaching staff, $500 price range, I'm assuming each. And he's looking at the C920 and a Yeti, and he assumes most people are on laptops with built-in webcams. How should he prioritize things with that budget?
My priority is generally the most important thing is your internet. So making sure that they have an Ethernet cable, if they can get them, you get them off of Wi-Fi if you can. That's going to be the number one thing that you can do to make things better. Then the second thing is audio. Audio is going to be the next most important thing. You can watch bad video for a long time. Audio, not so much. Lighting then is going to make a big difference because lighting is going to make it. It fixes a lot of problems with your cameras if you've got good lighting, and then your camera, and then your background. And the main thing is that as many people here know, I'm not a big fan of virtual backgrounds unless you can do it really well. And so you really have to, in my opinion, crush it or don't do it because it looks pathetic. So anyway, so that's my 2 cents there. Jeffrey and then Jesse, and then we'll move on.
Actually, I'm going to reverse that for you. I think camera should be the first important thing, especially since you're going for those 920s because they are in low stock. And if you wait till the last minute, I have a feeling once we get back to the school year, people are going to do a mad rush to do that, especially if they're not back in physical area. They have to do it all via video conference. So
I just
look at
prioritize.
that stuff
I just
first.
prioritize what's most important. What's most important is your audio. I
Yeah,
guarantee it.
yeah.
Like it's just
Agreed,
like
and I agree on that.
So the thing that the most important part of your connection is your audio and how they sound in the room and everything else. But the Yeti mics are probably some of the best in that price range. You know, if you're doing a $500 kit, $600 kit. Jesse?
Yeah, so as a testimonial for the Yeti mic, that is what I'm speaking on now. It's the $100 Yeti Nano, and it seems pretty consistent as far as coming in.
And it's not that close. Like if you pull it closer to you, how does it sound?
Yeah, now it's a little bit closer, so maybe it sounds a bit better. But the other thing, I'll be a testimonial for how great having an Ethernet connection is versus a Wi-Fi. Based on what Alex was suggesting, I used to use what I thought was a great Wi-Fi, which is the Orbi mesh network. And since I switched to Ethernet, my Zoom connection has been way better.
Yeah, it's kind of one of the secret weapons. Like it's just you just get rid of Wi-Fi.
I was really surprised. Yeah, because I sit literally by the Orbi router,
right,
like
but
2 feet away.
We have offices, that have 10 gigs going into them. So they're like, we got plenty of connection, but they have all those people on Wi-Fi APs, and it's just constantly breaking up. Go ahead, Jeff.
The other thing you can do to really improve audio is to wear headphones and not rely on the video conferencing system to do the echo cancellation. Yeah, it's going to help a lot. I use these little, when I send them out, we send these little autos out. They're about $40-$50 each. And that's part of our kit are these little autos with a little extension cord because they're a little too short. That's part of our standard kit is to get everybody onto headphones. I try not to have them going up the front. So we really want some kind of in-ear version of it to get it out of the way. Go ahead, Carl.
Yeah, I'd take a beat to pay attention to the out-of-the-box experience. So I'm assuming you're not delivering them in person, to make sure that there's some just really short, nice, bold, declarative sentences and pictures about what it is, because you're dealing with people that don't necessarily do this for a living. Pictures.
Like you can text. We sent a whole for our past kits. So we're building some new ones right now, and we're still in design, so we don't have the build outs. But we had a little video that you could go to YouTube, a little unlisted video that someone could go up and watch, showing everything getting put together. We also had a PDF with little plug this in here, and then we labeled everything of this goes into this. You just treat it like no one's that they barely understand what equipment is, and then we had a much higher success rate. So to Carl's point, it's documentation of it is probably almost as important. If you want them back, make sure to do little things like give them a return label, and then have somebody that has a tickler file that's calling them going, hey, we'd really like that back. Now in these days, you may not want that. You may want to just let them keep it, but instead you don't want them to cough on it, that kind of thing. So anyway, next question.
Philip Shane wants to know hopes and fears for WWDC keynote today. Talk amongst yourselves.
Does anyone have any? I don't have any fears. I'm not afraid. I don't have any fears. I think that I'm hoping that we see a lot more USDC. And I think I've talked about that before. I know that I sound crazy talking about USDC all the time.
What is that?
USDC is Apple announced it 2 years ago. This will be the third WWDC, or the third one that they'll hopefully discuss it. They discuss a little bit more every time. But USDZ is it's a 3D file format that is eventually what Apple says is going to be a media container that can be used in anything on the OS. And so. And what that means is it'll be as easy to add a 3D model to your Pages document or your Keynote document as it is to add a video or an image or text. It's just like, oh, I just want to throw a 3D object in there. Boom. And so that hasn't been completely, it's been a slow slog to have that to see that supported. I think it's going to change. I think some people are going to see it faster than others, but little things like, oh, I have what if all your stock photos, you get a stock photo of a phone and you get a stock photo of something else that it has to be sitting on the same desk and they don't have the same angle. You know, that the phone's this way and this one's this way. Well, now what if you just grab onto them and just rotate them around? Even just as stock photos for your thing, everything's going to look nicer. But you can also be spinning things around and animating them and everything else within Keynote. And so without it being a movie and making it interactive, and you'll be able to insert that into your Pages documents someday. I don't know if it's going to be this year, but I think that's what I'm hoping for, is to see mostly Pages and Keynote support it, is what I'm the most excited about, because it just will change the way we do presentations and education and everything else. I mean, it's going to make this, when they do it, I think it's when, I don't know, I don't have any inside information, but it'll make every other operating system seem really, really painful, because people are going to think, oh, this is really cool. And then it's going to become part of everything you do on a Mac. And you're going to send things to people that won't open. like they will be like, oh, because no one's gotten 3D right I've been talking about it for 20 years. I was talking to someone on Twitter about it that's been talking about it for 30 years. We all knew that this needed to happen. And people have made, they've tried to do it across platforms, and it's just been a disaster. And so Apple's, and Apple, all Apple did was see how Pixar was moving things around. They were like, hey, why don't we zip this? The universal scene description is something that Pixar uses. So anyway, that's the thing I'm most excited about. Apple will probably announced ARM, which sure, I mean, the Pro machines won't see it for 3 to 5 years, in my guess. So it's not going to really affect me. And then they'll announce whatever else they announce. Like, I don't care about the other stuff. Maybe we see a new Pro apps. Chris and then Bill.
Yeah, until that DZ is out, I use Keyshot for that type of stuff, because you can just embed it on a web page and rotate the model around. That's what we do on some of the stuff on our website. But I've been waiting like 12 years for updates to iLife and iWork. So when's that happening?
Well, I think that I'm hoping that it happens with where we get some new tools. And I think they do little updates. They just don't do any big updates. So
I think it'll happen when the 3D thing happens. The easiest way to think about USDZ is like PDF, except not rotten, for 3D. And it's really light and it's really fast.
Yeah, and you'll be able to email people, email 3D and email 3D objects to people, which I think you might be able to do now. But anyway, Bill?
Yeah, I think there's going to be a combination, as always, of a lot of joy and a lot of disappointment. There's always that with Apple presentations. Particularly, I'm looking forward to just how they present. This is their first 100% virtual conference from an organization known for doing things really well and thinking them through. So I want to see how they think this through.
Yep, no, absolutely. Go ahead, Chris.
Did they approach you, Alex, on how to do it well?
No comment.
So if they didn't, I'm just assuming it's going to be crap.
Well, I'm here, so I'm not there. So anyway, So let's next question.
Kyle Nesta says recommended KVM keyboard video mouse switch to physically distance crew members across multiple control rooms in the same building on the same floor. I don't know.
Monoprice has a cheap one. If you want to go network based, I bet Colin has a good one.
I'd have two good ones, and I can't remember the names of either one at the moment.
Great information.
Thanks for
that.
It's not serendipity. It starts with an S. But someone else here will remember it. It's damn it. Yes, there are a number of good network ones. I'm sure I'll put it in the
Synergy.
Chat. So yes, thank you, Synergy. And there was one other one I'll drop into the chat.
And I'm trying to find it. There is a just trying to line it up. There's a company out of Alameda that builds these amazing KVM systems that I didn't know about until we were dealing with the EVS operator. So EVS is a really high-end playback system. And I was talking to an EVS operator, and we were trying to figure out how to run the EVS at a distance, because it's got a bunch of cables. And he goes, oh, just use these guys. And it's modular. It's like a box. And you say, I want RS-232 and I want USB and you just slide these little cards into the box, and then it sends it over. You can decide whether it's fiber or cat or whatever. And that's a module on the front end. And then you run it, and it is rock solid, and it's expensive. I'm always the best expensive solution. I don't know what it was, but it was like, I think it might've been like $700 or $800 a side, it's not cheap, but it was an amazing little box that you could just it was all these modular, whatever, what do you want to send over the fiber? What communications do you want to have? And you slide the little cards in, and I'll find out who it was. I just can't remember it off the top of my head. Yishai?
Yeah, I just want to say one thing regarding when you're looking for KVM switches, they have very simple one to very complicated one. The thing to really look for is to match your refresh rate, the screen resolution, because some of them do not support all the way the resolution that you need. So really check the spec of the KVM, and some of them go to fiber, some of them have a control center that you can control all of them. So the most important thing is really to understand what you need to get out of the KVM and then purchase the right one for yourself.
Yep. Next, go ahead, Jeffrey, quickly.
NDI does have a KVM solution. I know that's probably not the best in some cases, but that's something to look for, and it's free.
Cool. Next question.
Jeff Francis says, I need to live stream from a site with no wired internet. What cell service or device would you recommend?
So Jeff, can you tell us a little bit more about your location?
Don't know. I'm imagining recitals, concerts that are going to happen in local area churches or other places, and taking an ATEM mini and need to wire it into something to stream out.
The most rock solid one that we've used for this, it just depends on, its price and everything else, but is, LiveUs are what we use for a lot of those things. So a LiveU is going to bond a bunch of cellular together. So it's not one cellular. It's 6 cellulars, or if you get an extender, it's 14 cellular connections that are all happening at the same time. Cost is going to be $2,000 to $2,500 a month and that'll come with like 50 gigs of transfer. And, they lease them. I think you can buy them, but they're like 20 grand or something like that. But that's a pretty good solution. I mean, that's a pretty solid solution that's going to handle it. Now, Terradeck builds ones that you can do your own. There's TVU. I kind of think that TVU is a bucket of bolts. It's not. We haven't been super excited about that. And there's a couple other ones, but then there also, if you want to really build your own, there's PepWave that you can bond. You can bond your local internet along with a bunch of other things. But you have to have another piece on your home site, because it's really just connecting to a server unit on your end. And so those are a couple different options there. Guy, go ahead.
Yeah, on the LiveU, it is only $9.99, and it does have 4 connections. So if you can get that Ethernet drop, you're going to drop in
That's the
Ethernet.
little one?
Yeah, it's cheap. There is something called the LRT, which you'll pay like $350 for, and that's what bonds it up in the cloud. So the modem that I use is this little guy right here. So this can be Wi-Fi and Ethernet. So this thing has 4 ports, so you can do 2 cell modems, the little USB kind, and then Ethernet.
But which one is that? What's the LU?
It's called the Solo. This is called the LiveU Solo.
Yeah, the one I'm talking about is the LU 500.
Yeah, but he's not going to drop.
LU 600.
Yeah, for $1,000 versus what's your budget?
Yeah. What's your budget is the question.
Low university budget.
Then guys talk to Guy.
Well, then
or Terradeck. Yeah.
The other part of the question is the bandwidth. So I used to recommend something called unlimited IRL, but I just found one from Jeff Keithley in the chat that NetBuddy something CO is only $65 a month, unlimited. So I'm paying right now $135 and $179 for one AT&T and one Verizon. So you want to get a couple different carriers. Unlimited IRL also has T-Mobile. So that if you get all the carriers, you should be pretty good. And then you can get some extenders too to extend the antennas. Yeah,
and the main thing is that to know that when you have a lot of people is when you're going to have trouble. So you go to like the problem with church, when you talk about churches, it's the size of the church that will matter. And especially if you're in a rural area, one of the challenges you're going to have is there's not that many, cell towers. So the cell receivers can get overwhelmed by too many people in one place. And so sometimes these cell backups come apart because of that. So it's just something to kind of keep in mind. The other side away from cell is point-to-point microwave, which so you can get dishes that are send and receive. It's a couple grand to buy a set. But what you can do is basically, if you find somebody that has really good wired internet and line of sight to the place that you're going, and then you aim them, and you can get that connection. And that connection will actually be better than your cell connection. What you're watching me on right now is I've got a dish on my roof, and it goes 3 miles to a mountain, and then down over fiber. So that's how that's working right now. And you can get We don't. The ones that go over 12 miles are pretty expensive after that, but the ones under 12 miles is somewhere in the ballpark. Paul and then Jason.
Yeah, I just want to second what Guy was saying about the little AT&T hockey puck. I think Verizon probably has one too. I've had one at the top of my condo running my ham radio all-star network for a year, 24/7, flawless, perfect, $70 a month.
That's great. Jason?
Another thing that you don't want to overlook when you're doing something like cellular streaming is turn your ATEM Mini down, turn down your frame rate, let the hardware do your scaling, and only stream if you're going to go over cellular at 720, 60, but I'd say 720 at 2997 looks fantastic and is the vast majority of YouTube anyway.
Well, I don't know. I mean, you might want to do 1080p, but what I would definitely do is don't stream 60 unless you're doing sports or games. Like 660, you're just putting extra bits down the thing that no one's going to see. So that's definitely something we see people do a fair bit recently because a lot of things are supporting 60 now. Next question.
Derek Hirsch says, what are the benefits of using a VPN? What are the most recommended VPNs and why?
That's a pretty complicated question. There's a lot of reasons to use a VPN. I mean, the biggest reason that you use a VPN is because it gives you a secure connection from one place to another. So you're tunneling through the internet and you're not sharing any of your information. You're basically building an opaque pipe between the device that you have and the other device. And so that's one advantage of VPN. If you have a VPN, for instance, on your laptop, which most computers can just have it, all you have to do is set the settings and they'll do VPN. You can be at Starbucks. When you connect to Starbucks into the VPN, your traffic is not going. It's going through their hardware, but they can't see it. So that's a pretty useful thing from a security perspective. I won't connect to a hotel Wi-Fi without it. Without some kind of VPN, I'm not gonna talk to the hotel that way. So that's something to kind of consider. The second thing is that it lets you build a network. Basically. You can kind of define your subnets and so on and so forth, so that you really have, for like a Meraki system, which is what we use a lot of, is I have a head unit and everything thinks it belongs to the head unit. They all just think there are other rooms in the same building. No matter where they are in the world, you pop into them, whether it's that computer or and they all talk to each other. And then I have known IPs so that I can control remote, hardware and, all those bits and pieces. So I think that's those are my big advantages. Colin?
It's worth making the distinction between commercial VPN providers and the VPNs that Alex is talking about. When you're building a VPN for production use, what you're effectively doing is you're creating a single tunnel from your production location to your central office. And you can configure that using Meraki routers or virtually any other router these days with decent firmware, and 90% of them will do this. You can configure them to dial into a VPN server. So you would need to then run a VPN server to allow the incoming connection, and then you've effectively built your network accordingly. The commercial VPN providers are fear-based marketing, basically, allowing you to sail the high seas and acquire software and whatever else, access content that you wouldn't otherwise be able to access from your region and that sort of thing. That's not what we're talking about here, though. So but that was the distinction I wanted to make here.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and that's a great point, Colin. And I don't, for work, I don't use any of the VPN. I don't use software VPNs. I do use software VPNs to watch the Steelers out of India, because it doesn't have any blackout dates. Other thing, which I pay for, by the way. I pay the NFL for it. I just pay for it out of India rather than there. So that's the one place
it's worth listing a couple of VPN software solutions in this regard. There are a couple open source projects. OpenVPN and FreeSwan are the typical VPN server and client packages that you would be using. OpenVPN running on your central office VPN target server, and then FreeSwan, which is built into almost every router out there as a VPN client. You're going to want to look at a router that supports either DDWRT open source firmware, or just check and make sure that it supports L2TP VPN connections. There you go.
Jason, 15 seconds.
Mozilla has a brand new VPN that's relatively inexpensive, and I love excuses to give them money for any reason. And second, OpenVPN is a protocol, nothing else. So don't think of OpenVPN as a service. That's all.
It's a server package.
Right.
It supports L2TP and a couple other protocols.
Next question.
Our own Mr. Comfort says, you've mentioned certain safeguards with ISPs for home service, including using your own modem or router. Are there any other suggestions you have in this situation? I'm about to switch from Spectrum to Verizon Fios, and I want to get started on the right foot.
All I can say is congratulations. Going from Spectrum to Fios. You're going to be so much happier.
Oh, I know.
Spectrum is such a dumpster fire. Anyway, so anyway, and Fios is pretty much the gold standard in my opinion. Fios and Google Fiber are kind of like when someone says they have that at home, we're like, oh, this is going to be a much more comfortable conversation. The main thing is just, it's worth doing some studying. All I would say is it's worth building up your own firewall to some degree. Don't just expect their modems to do it, and don't just have it sitting out there. I think you're not in a bad situation with those. And mine is mostly the Comcast modems are really, I don't care what they say. I do not like the idea that they're building a huge Wi-Fi network using my modem, that's in my house. Like that's crazy talk, and so I just take them out immediately just because I don't think that's a good idea. I just disagree with it on all levels, and so I get rid of their modems immediately, and because you're paying rent to them anyway, you might as well buy them. I have Aris surfboards are what I use, and I've used them for a long time, and they work fine. They work great. Every once in a while you have to unplug them and plug them back in about once every 6 months because they get out of whack with the server, but so does the Comcast ones. George and then Jason, 15 seconds each. We got a lot of questions.
Like Alex said, I would immediately get rid of the Fios router and put in your own and control it.
And that's modem and router, you mean? Or
just the router?
Okay.
Put in your own router.
Well, and you can get, just look at what's compatible. You have to look at, if you go up there, a lot of these, it just depends on what protocols that they're supporting. Jason, go ahead.
Buy your own modem, definitely, and get one that doesn't have its own DHCP. Eero works really well in New York because it's an extremely saturated area. So their channel seeking is fantastic.
What is that again? Sorry.
EERO, Eero.
Okay.
Next question.
I'm sad. I just checked. I can't get it here. On iPad Pro, can you switch to speaker view so we can see who is talking? Prema's talking about
usually Mickey's switching to it at times. He switches back.
Most of the time I'm on speaker view. Then occasionally I go to gallery view if there's a lot of quick back and forth.
Yeah, he was asking during mic check.
Oh, okay, got it. Next question.
TJ wants to know, is there any insight to how Apple manages their live events like WWDC keynotes? They seem to always be very high quality. And also, there's a note here, high quality productions with live translation into other languages.
Time and money?
You can't say. I could tell you one thing. I'll just tell you a quick story from years ago. Being in the Bay Area, I know many people that work on Apple events, and to confirm when they were going to happen, I would just give them a call and say, hey, are you available on every Tuesday in October? And they'd say, no, I'm not available the second Tuesday. And then I'd know there was an event coming up. But they are always testing stuff at the truck at their locations. And there's always some black hat guy coming in with some new box, and they're tying into the truck, and they'll do tests for a couple of years before they debut new technology. So it's a great test bed for them.
I mean, I can't talk to the Apple events, but what I can talk to is in general for these keynotes, I think people don't realize how much work goes into them. And Carl, who's going to be talking on Wednesday, will probably can allude to that, or Thursday can allude to some of that. But with with any of a large corporation, a top 10, or Fortune 10 company, you're looking at the combination of months of planning, weeks of logistics, and at least a week, if not 2 weeks of a rehearsal.
On-site rehearsal.
On-site rehearsal. Like you're not, like it's not like we're setting up 4 hours before and getting this thing off the ground. It is a giant machine. There's 100 people working on it for 2 weeks, on site. And that doesn't count, again, oftentimes most of these companies started talking about it, talk about what was going to be in it 3 to 6 months before. And they've been kind of working through it. The speakers oftentimes are in speaker prep with people like Carl for months, getting trained on how to talk and how to do stuff and how to present themselves. I have a lot of experience with Salesforce's process, and anybody who's camera facing is getting trained like 2 or 3 hours a week, like all the time, and so when you see that, it's not, it takes a lot more than we're going to have Joe come up and Susie come up and talk about it. It's a lot of build up to make those things work. Go ahead, Carl.
Yeah, when you get to a big show, the stuff that's going on when you finally get to day before is, if it's a good show, it's the small stuff. It is the 200 grain sandpaper of dropping a phrase or a word, or in Alex's case, getting a color just to look a little bit better. And that's really what sets a good show apart from a bad show. And there are a lot of bad shows out there, and you can tell that they haven't had the time to put it in before.
Most are bad shows. You're like, you look at things like when people have big Murray problems with their LED walls. I'm like, did you look at that? Did you look through the camera? Did you look through the camera? Because I can see it, and I'm pretty sure you probably could have saw it yesterday too. Anyway,
I'll try to tell the story on Thursday of the guy who stole most of a coffee break at a show, and it was a big show, and he shouldn't have, but it was a disaster.
Okay, that sounds good. All right, next question.
Next question is Patrick Denny. I'm watching the Empire at 40 talk. Amazing. Are you allowed to discuss how you set everything up from the hardware side, and if there was talk about how to add lower thirds?
So I can actually talk about that one. So ILM gave me a little bit more freedom on that one.
I yield my time.
Yeah. So that was done over Skype. So we called every person, over Skype to do that piece. Now that was done as a record. There was a lot of, there was a record to live. So we didn't do it. It wasn't purely live. We played it out as live, but we did do the record and cleaned it up a little bit. And mostly it was just that there were sensitive, you're talking about something that does have some secrets to it. And so while the guys were pretty free running, there were a couple things that were probably not the most appropriate to share. And so those things were edited out. All of those were brought in. They all talk to each other through what we call our view system, which allows us to basically, it basically does what Zoom does, but in hardware. And that allows us to basically record all of the ISOs at full resolution. Skype gives us higher quality video, higher quality audio, and we're able to pull all those in, just recording them to Hyperdecks, and then do a multicam from there. We did do a cut of it, but we just ended up just doing a multicam edit. They had snowball mics, which actually turned out much better than I expected. I have a very low opinion of the snowball mics, but they actually sounded pretty good. They also had 930s. The 930s are what ILM had acquired for a couple other things, for room meetings that they were planning to do anyway. And so they had those around, and so they sent them out. And those were, I was afraid that they would distort them too much, but what was really nice was the guys that were on it it really showed you who they were. Joe Jackson's background distinguishes him from Phil Tippett, distinguishes him from Dennis Mira, and distinguishes him from Lauren Peterson. They all had very different, and Bill George, they all had these cool backgrounds. And we got Lauren Peterson, he had these blue elephants from Jumanji that were way off in the distance. And we were like, hey, why don't you bring one of those down and just put it by the fireplace? Just don't say anything about it. Don't talk about it. Just a little extra back there. And so he did that, and it took people about halfway through the show to realize that he's got a blue elephant from Jumanji right sitting next to on his fireplace. And so there was a lot of work with everybody to get ready. So we probably spent an hour and a half with each person to tune up their audio, to figure out where they should sit. And poor Joe Jackson, Joe Johnson. I apologize. Joe Jackson is an artist that I listen to a lot. So, but Joe Johnson is the art director that we were talking about here. And so, he had to go upstairs, then he had to go downstairs, he had to go around. But they were amazingly good. And if you haven't seen it, it's just such a great conversation. Like, it was just a really warm conversation that gave you a whole different sense of what it was like to be there. And I'm excited. It got me excited because it almost happened in perfect timing, because I'm moving into the old ILM stage where Empire was shot. Right now, my new office is going to be in one of the offices in the same building, and we were trying to get it done before this happened, so that I would be doing the remote connection from the building that they were working in, but didn't quite pull off the turn. So anyway, so that's a little bit of the hardware behind it. But it was just laptops connected to Skype, bringing them in. We're moving. As part of that experience, we are moving to vMix call. so the Skype on a laptop doing a screen scrape is highest quality for audio and video that we have on a regular connection, but we've kind of decided that it's not a workable solution long term as we start to scale and start to get more of these shows moving. So anyway, that's a little bit of the background. Hopefully we get to do more of those. They're a lot of fun. Next question.
Alton says he's looking for a single webcam ring light or small cube-like light that can be managed by the Mac OS, not an iOS app, to control brightness and color, attaches by USB for power, and control preferred, though radio controlled or external power is an option.
Guy, does yours run on a Mac OS app?
No, it's just an iOS app, but that sounds like a dream. I want that too. So when you find one, let me know.
I was like, I don't think that is. I don't think that you can get that. So the thing that the one thing that I'm going to do with the lights that I have right now is to get them on DMX. And that's when I was going to do it all here, but since I'm moving them all to the new location, I'm going to wait until I get them there. But then I'll run them on DMX, and then there's lots of controllers that you can kind of set up that'll do a DMX control. DMX is a protocol to tell the lights what to do. So anyway, so that's what we're going to use for that. But I don't know
how many hands in the room would take one. Maybe there's a manufacturer that could help make that happen. Guy,
I like the one that we have with the iOS app. I mean, it's pretty cool, but I think that he wants to do this remotely, which would be really neat. But I could think of an expensive way to do it, possibly with like some Sky panels or something like that. But I can think of a cheap way.
And again, the thing to look at, or the thing that you may want to look at, is you can run DMX over the internet. You can have a receiver and so the thing to think about is a light with DMX, where you plug it in, then you plug it into a node, and then you can control it remotely at that point.
Well, and there's your use case for a VPN.
Right. I mean, it's one use case. Although, I was talking to someone about it. You can also, as simple as a Raspberry Pi, have the Raspberry Pi tunnel home, and provide those connections. You don't need a whole VPN to do what we're talking about, but it is the easiest little way to do it. But there's definitely folks that I'm talking to that are doing a lot of the controls. A surprising number of them are using Raspberry Pis for that thing, because it's really inexpensive and low level, and it does the job. Chris?
Yeah, DMX is really the way. And Ari makes an iPad app called Stellar, which can interface with its own DMX like Sky panels, but also third-party DMX lighting controls. And I'm pretty sure does a program like MIDI also interact with DMX or the show apps?
Yeah, a lot of those do. The main thing is just figuring out what you're going to have on the far end and how you're going to grab that IP, so that you can see it, and then you're just talking to it. So that's the thing to figure out. And it's definitely, we're building some new remote kits, and DMX capable lights is it's table stakes for us because of needing to do exactly what you're talking about. Jeffrey, 15 seconds, and then we're going to move on.
I know that Philips has the strip lights where you can bend it and everything like that. So maybe the Philips Hue is a possible if you need to do it on the cheap.
Yep. Mike, okay, well, now we have to go to speed round because we have so many questions. so we're switching to speed round here to kind of move through this. So let's go, Chris. We're going to move fast.
Mike Anderson, will there be an office hours WWDC watch party? Yes or no?
Mike Andrews is putting one on. There's, I think, a link in the Discord. I'm not able to do it because I have oddly enough, I have meetings that I couldn't move. So I'm going to be doing that. So, but go to Discord and I think there's a link there. Maybe someone can post the Discord link in here to make sure people know where it is. But I think Mike Andrews was kind of organizing that, and so that'll be the unofficial group watching it. But I'm going to be actually be in meetings and have to watch the highlights later. Next question.
It's actually Mike and myself. I'll be doing that.
Oh, you're doing that, Paul? Sorry. So Paul. Oh, there we go. Full stream ahead. Can you put the link in, Paul, that people can jump to? Can you put it in the chat? Next
sure,
question.
Will do.
Okay, next question.
Has anyone found a good third-party Q&A tool that has the upvote feature like Zoom Webinars has? I like that feature, but it's not available in Zoom meetings.
Start a subreddit.
Q&A tool.
Yeah, we'll be testing something in July with all of you. That's a third party that will work with or without even video. So it's coming very fast. Anyway, week or two. Anyway, next question.
Mr. Tucker says, when streaming using a CDN, Vimeo, Wowza, etc., do you embed to a landing page or distribute the CDN video links directly?
Oh, yeah, go ahead, George.
So I do on the embeds, I do embed, and I also give the client the backend link, because sometimes you'll infinitely have some user that's going to have a problem. So I just give up the backend link also for direct feed.
Yeah, and I mean, in general, we're embedding it somewhere on a web page, but remember that you're not going to, that embed isn't going to mean anything if you're on a phone. You know, that's going to go full screen. So but that usually can be handed off within the web page to make that work. So usually it's getting, I very rarely am using a CDN that's not public like Facebook or YouTube, where we're not embedding it into some kind of page that we can control access. Colin?
Just very quickly, most of the white label CDNs will allow you to establish the sharing link within your published media, such that the embedded player, when you click a share button, will actually embed or provide the URL to the page, your landing page, and not the direct content off the CDN, which is certainly something you want to look for when you're doing that kind of thing, because you really want people sharing your target landing page rather than the embedded content therein.
Yeah, and a lot of that also means that, you know, you can change it. You know, part of it is like you might have to change something in there, and having them go to your original link is not a great solution.
Yeah. Also, it's worth considering along those lines to always build a redirect service into your website, so you can rearrange the target link whenever you see fit, regardless of what URL someone starts with.
Absolutely. Next question.
Jason says, I have an old Mackie 14-channel audio mixer. When I powered it on and there is a hum. Lift the device up, rotate it 90 degrees, set it back down. Hum disappears. Why? Because Mackie wants to buy a new mixer.
So the power transformer on the 1604 is a well-known issue. You need to go to
1402 probably.
I think it's the same transformer, but yeah, it's about $45 and you can get it at Full Compass Systems. Just replace it yourself.
And the other thing to know is
cold solder joint or a loose insulation issue.
No, it's a direct connection. You don't need to solder.
The one question is it always humming in the same direction? So you turn it 90 degrees, you have to keep, because I have parts. So I have
every morning you have to turn it another 90 degrees.
Yeah, exactly. Or is it always, if you have it one way, because you can have electrical, like, in your house, you can have fields that are affecting your mics, affecting your mixers. I have one part of my office over here, or my little room here, that if I have my high mic turned at a certain angle, you'll hear a buzz. And if I just turn it a little bit off angle, you won't hear it anymore. And so, yeah, go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, every guitar player who's ever played a single coil pickup guitar is familiar with this this phenomenon. Basically, electromagnetic radiation is coming from different directions, and if you have something that the shielding has gone for whatever reason, the device is going to have more sensitivity from one direction. And so essentially when you point the sensitive part of the device towards where the noise is coming from, the noise gets louder. I mean, what's wrong with your mixer is something's broken, but
but it depends on how powerful the electromagnetic field is. There's a place called Lookout Mountain in outside of Denver, Colorado, and I used to DJ weddings, and I DJ'd weddings up there, and I do it about once a month. I'd be up there. It had a radio tower, and it was so powerful that I had to put tinfoil on all along the back of my my DJ rig, or you could hear the radio stations and I was like, I don't think this is good for people. If I can hear radio stations through the wires, that's a lot of power that's coming out. It was hundreds of thousands of watts of power that's like 50 feet away. And it was I
was assuming no EMR.
Yeah. So anyway, Chris, 15 seconds, then we're gonna move on. We're gonna have to start moving faster. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, either broken or bad design. There was a very popular brand of Steadicam, not Steadicam, but some brand of camera stabilizer system, and their monitor, if you were next to it with a Motorola and push to talk, the monitor would kill the signal completely. So you'd be at the head of the tank and call action, and there'd be no picture, and you have to wait 3 seconds for it to come back. And it's because there was no shielding in the monitor. It was a known issue.
Oh my gosh. Okay, next question. We're going to move through these really fast. So when I come to you, 15 seconds. Okay, go.
Dan Burt says, can I have some views/comments of the Elgato Keylight Airs small office setup?
Anybody using those? Go ahead, Jason.
Yep. Buy it. That's it.
Okay, there you go. Next question.
Has anyone used the Terradeck Live Air remote or LiveU Solo cam recently? iOS.
A guy was just talking about the Solo, but I think this is talking about the phone version of this, and I haven't used it recently. Has anyone else used it recently as for streams? No. Okay. Sorry, we got stumped. All right, next question.
Gabriel says, would you prefer to build a rack mountable PC with a Blackmagic design DeckLink Duo 2, doubling up as a capture device, or more a capture device and more in the whole setup, or a Thunderbolt 3 enclosure with 2 to 3 PCI slots? Considerations.
Those aren't the same thing.
I'm not sure what that I can tell you what I'm getting is I'm getting rack mountable PC. We're putting a bunch of vMixes in, and I'm getting a rack mountable PC with it's got a NVIDIA card in it, and then a Duo card, and they're one use. And I'm just going to add one for every phone caller. So anyway, so that's what I'm doing for vMix, and I got that design from Jeff Keithley. I just put it up on Discord, and Jeff said, this is what you want to get. And then I just went to Dell's website and said, okay, that's what I'll get. Anyway, next question.
I am intrigued by the Prompterpeople 6040 teleprompters. Does anyone have experience with their build quality? Elliot Murphy.
I have owned probably 10 or 15 of them, of Prompterpeoples. I think they're great. They're a little tweaky to put together. Like they're always like, really, this is how we had to do this. But overall, once they're up, they're great. I like the monitors that they use. I find that they're bright enough. I've been pretty happy with them overall, other than that the build is complicated. Once you know how to do it, it's fine, but it's not, you can't just send it to someone and have them set it up. There's like a lot of bits and pieces to it. And you have to be careful. They don't really break down in an easy way. So you have to put a lot of padding in them. We've probably broken more of those pieces of glass shipping than almost anything else we've done. And so you have to be super careful of how you ship the glass. Anyone else with Prompterpeople? All right, next question.
Kevin McCardle says, has anyone have any feedback on the recent Hyperdeck Studio Mini update? I used to use it, but always ended up moving away because of audio issues and being stuck using slow SD cards. Does the update make it a buy again?
It works perfectly. You just need to make sure that you understand how it's doing timecode and how they've changed the channels for AAC.
And I haven't had any trouble with the minis. So I don't know. I've been using them since they came out. So we use really fast cards, but I don't know. I mean, we use most of our main records are on the bigger Hyperdecks because of the audio in and out, analog audio in and out. So we use the Pros because we need that. And so the minis are mostly for playback for us that are embedded in or just raw captures of the feed. So we don't use them in quite the same mission critical level that other people do because we don't have analog in. Next question.
Has anyone ever do live production with a Linux only setup workflow? If so, any suggestions for hardware and software? This person, Chris S, is just getting tired of Apple's behavior toward developers.
No, I don't know anybody that does.
Doesn't want to use.
I mean, we do streaming on Linux servers, and that's why I use Elementals. But as far as production, I don't know. I've never seen anybody do that. Elliot, and then Jeffrey.
So I worked for a few years at a large Linux vendor.
Quickly, 15 seconds. We're going speed round.
We did not do it Linux only there.
There you go. That's a good one. Jeffrey, 10 seconds.
I know that OBS does a Linux version.
Okay,
and
there you go.
Provides a Linux version.
Yeah, and all I'm going to say is I know there was a mention about Hey there. All I can say is that Hey is a stupid idea.
Hey is
and the reason that they're going to fail.
Stupid idea.
If they're not going to fail because Apple, cut their wings. They're going to fail because it's the dumbest idea I've seen in a long time. All right, next question.
Jeff Francis says, any creative ideas to put an old tablet device like a Kindle Fire to use?
Show notes. Like you might want to use it for show notes. Leland.
They make great web controllers for some of the software-driven switchers. So they usually have a web address you can go to and connect to the software control.
Clocks. You can't really see this here, but clocks. This is an old phone. Clocks. Clocks are good. You can use them for that. And then we use them for showing images, but we use a lot of old tablets for clocks. Jeffrey, quickly, 10 seconds.
Yeah, I have a QSC touch mix, and I use a Kindle Fire for the control, and that's pretty much it. Otherwise, you can't even connect it up to the stream.
Next question.
What are you using to switch the Zoom calls? Is this a feature built into Zoom or external?
I think that it is. If you're talking about this call that we're doing,
yes, I believe that's what Nate is asking.
Yeah. So basically, we've set up Mickey as the editor. He becomes the host of the show, and then he then is cutting. He's basically spotlighting or not spotlighting, but pinning, and you guys are watching what he's establishing. It's really a rough solution inside of Zoom. We have what Zoom wants to do, in my opinion. Well, I don't know what they want to do, but what I want Zoom to do is let us do what we were able to do on Hangouts. Yeah, what we used to do in Hangouts, which is what we call sticky clicking, which is that I can just click on the window that I want. So I just, what the editor there should be an editor class, not a host class, but someone who's called an editor. You can establish an editor, and then that editor can just tap on Windows and edit, and it would transform meetings. Because it's what we used to have for Hangouts is just sticky clicking, and then we built really complex versions of that where you could do weighting. So weighting so we could say you only pay attention to these 4 people in the room. Like don't jump to those ones, and so you could auto switch when you start really playing with the idea of mixing a human with a machine to do this, not have it all automatic and not have it all whatever. You get into some pretty powerful solutions that are better than both or either. Anyway, next question.
Esbjorn Larson says, can Alex explain how he connects his Wacom Cintiq tablet to the switcher for, the question.
I broke it this morning I was trying to add something to it. So we're going to have to show it to you next Monday. I promised it this Monday, and then I wanted to add a feature to it, and I broke it. And I broke it like at right before we went on at 6. And then I was like, well, I'm not going to, I was going to try to do it in that hour and get it reset. I don't think I'm going to have it reset. So I think we're going to have to wait 1 week for me to, I'll explain it to you, but I won't be able to show it to you because I was trying to show off and I paid the price of doing something at the last minute. So anyway, I apologize, but we will talk about it a little bit and I'll show it to you in a week, or maybe I'll even show it to you on Tuesday informally, just because I feel bad that I did that. Anyway, next question.
Continuous autofocus on streaming cameras, important or stick with manual focus?
I prefer it to do manual focus because it breathes. But if if you're moving around a lot, the problem is you move out of the center and it'll grab onto the back and everything else. But I will admit that we did this event last week and we had Madison McFerrin, who's Bobby McFerrin's daughter, in it, and she had his autofocus on, and it gave it this weird handheld look because it was constantly breathing, and it was kind of cool. Like I was kind of like, I don't know if I would do that all the time, but with her, it was like this really cool lighting, and she was doing her thing, and I was like, I kind of like that. Like anyway, Chris, go ahead.
I would say manual and like calculated depth of field. Like get yourself a foot of depth that if you do a bit of leaning, you're not going to, because there's nothing worse than when people talk and they gesticulate, they put their hand towards the camera and it starts to do this breathing thing.
Chris, 15 seconds.
I have mine set on F10 and manual, so I've got 8 feet of room here.
Right. Next question.
Philip wants to know if it's possible to record ISOs in Wirecast using Rendezvous.
Anyone know that? I
Jeffrey?
have not been very successful with Rendezvous. We've tested it and we kind of no. Jeffrey.
And I'll say this, Rendezvous is a dumpster fire itself. And yes, you cannot do ISOs in there, but there is a nice little trick to use the multi-view. You can actually set them up into their own area. You won't do the audio separate, but it'll definitely do the video of the scene that you set up.
Next question.
Mike Anderson wants to know, is there an online way to have a separate comm channel for a Zoom meeting? I'm thinking we might just do a phone conference call. That's what we did last week on my big show. We had producers and people, chiming in all over the country, and they had a separate conference channel just going.
Well, you can't just use Zoom and not look at it.
No. I think they're talking about, staff who are managing the event.
Yeah, I think he's trying to do just a phone conference call. I mean, you could just use Zoom and just have everyone call in, and then it's a Zoom conference call, or you can use Unity Comms as a quick setup for that kind of thing. But if you're trying to do comms, he's not in the room. Okay. I think that one's I'm a little unsure what you're trying to do there. Next question.
Okay, clicking. Sorry. At one point, you had mentioned a captioning second hour. Is that still in the works? Is there a captioning software you would recommend? Oh, that's 2 questions. I'm sorry. Ignore that second question.
Well, no, we are going to do a second hour in July. I promise in July. I'm just trying to collect the right people, and there's been some scheduling things. I want to bring really good people in for that. That really have a lot of background, possibly even the hardware solutions for that. So I just want to have it might even be more than 1 hour. Go ahead, Elaine, 15 seconds.
Sorry, guys, I have a teacher's meeting. Just one question. The Friday second hour seemed to be a little bit not set up yet. Is there any way you can move the Monday's education to the Friday? Because most of my teachers, the Monday is a busy day for them in classes, and Friday is usually off. So please consider that. I have to leave now for my meeting, but I will try to join on other Mondays. Thank you very much.
Great. Thanks. Next question.
Has anyone figured out a timecode solution for vMix?
Leland, really fast.
I haven't looked into it enough because there's actually other people doing the same, and we haven't come up with a solid solution yet. Okay. So right now it's really just recording the clock.
Next question. We're so close.
Need to replace my broadcast headsets for the crew in the control room. Any feedback on newer models by Audio-Technica? The BPHS2 series, would you go for a dynamic hypercardioid or a condenser cardioid?
Jeff, really fast.
I haven't used them, but the dynamic is 1 ear and the condenser is 2 ear. So if that matters, that's part of your decision.
I'm a big 2 ear person, but there's a lot of people that aren't. So I like 2 ears because I don't like to listen to anybody else other than what I'm doing. But there's a lot of folks that are 1 ear or light ear. I like I don't listen to anything else other than what I'm working on. But I don't even check. People get upset with me because I won't even check my email during an event. Like you have to text me. Like we figure out what the text is, and then I won't look at email because I don't like to be distracted. That's how you screw up your event. All right, next question.
Here we go. This is the last one I have. What's the advantage of bringing in vMix callers on separate individual PCs? Rather than a lower system overhead on the main
redundancy. Like it's like
distributed points of failure.
Yeah,
Period.
yeah, you're just distributing points of failure. Something goes wrong with that computer, and I still have 3 other shows. You know, 3 other callers, or I have another one, and you just don't. I don't want to have my whole show all tied up in something or a set of calls or whatever. And I'm already using. If I use the $700 version, which is what I'm going to use right now, I'm using one of the outputs to send a well-designed return back to the person, and it's just much easier to think about and to route. For me, the best I could do is 2 rather than 4, because I'm not sending just program back to everybody. Anyway, that's it. I think we got to the end of the questions. Go ahead, Chris.
Real quickly. So are you setting up a separate vMix machine for each of the callers coming in?
Yeah.
So you can do that video mix minus back to them type thing?
It's not video mix minus back to them, but what I'm doing is I'm designing the return, and Leland was very kind to sit down with me a little bit yesterday so I could figure some of the stuff out. But I'm designing the return, so that basically I can make it, each person can get their own style back, like, so the folks that are in the conversation, the producer, everybody can get their own little version of it that I designed for them that's branded and it looks cool, and the producer can get stats, and there's all kinds of things that we might want to send them that is different. Right now we're just sending them a split, and I wanted to do something a little bit better, and we are going to start the education here in just a second, but I'm running just a little over. Chris, go ahead.
Can Leland do a 4-hour Zoom call for all of us so we can all set ours up and ask him questions too? I mean, why do you get to be the only one who gets to talk to Leland?
Because, Leland and I are friends, and
he has a better Rolodex than you do.
So Leland's going to start. So Alex Fordy Goldner, I don't know if he's here right now, but he told me that he's unable to do, Alex said that he was unable to do the later time, and I couldn't move the earlier time because it's also Nick needs it in earlier. So Alex is going to take some time off. He's going to be traveling a little bit. And in Alex's role on Saturdays is going to be vMix hour. So we're all going to have, I'm not going to give it to you in 4 hours at a time, but we'll give you 1 hour at a time. We'll be vMix on Saturdays. How's that, Fritchie? Does that work for you? All right. We're already ahead. The announcement went out last night. So I'm not even just responding to you. I was already, it's a cool app. It's a cool app. And I can't, so I'm using it for very specific reasons, but I have a lot of questions and I'm slowly learning it. And I realize that all of you probably do. And we can get a 60-day demo. All right. Now we are going to shift gears into education. And so I don't have an agenda for today. If you have questions that you want to bring up or things that you want to discuss, go ahead and put them in the Q&A. I know there's probably more people here that are in education than there have been in the past. So